Alright, so Theory and Theology, what's up? I'm kind of just chilling, doing some outdoor recordings. I don't know. I think I've just witnessed some kind of a drug pickup spot or some kind of pickup spot. um One guy went back behind this area when I was first recording before I started eating some food. And then I ate my food. This other guy probably, let's call it maybe 20 minutes later, comes by and goes back to the same area real quick and then comes out a bit. So I don't know, people like leaving stuff and other people picking it up. It might be nothing, but it's kind of weird. I don't know, this parking lot where I hang at, where I chill and just people watch and stuff, it's not too late, 6:40 p.m. But this parking lot, there's usually people out here. The car that's almost always parked here, I noticed a couple weeks ago. I think that was the day I saw police, and I think they were having it get removed. I don't know if that was what was happening at that day, but I noticed after that day I never saw that car again, and I saw it before then. For like at least a year, it's been there almost every day. With these those metallic kind of window, like those things you put in the windows, and usually sometimes the door's even slightly open. I've seen somebody go in and out of it. They usually stow a bike in front of it, and now all I see is something that looks like it's wrapped up in a tarp, and I can't tell if it's belongings or a person sleeping. I don't know, guys. This parking lot's, I don't know what to even say. It's not like a shady place, but I mean, like, LA's becoming a whole different, people are doing whatever they're doing. And it's not even the middle of the night. It's like, first night of Kwanzaa. Holidays just ended for most people. For some people, they're still going. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about this video that I saw not that long ago on Shalise Ansola's page. It's not a new video, but it has an ex-Jehovah's Witness talking about his extreme isolation experiences that were caused by that religion. And, I don't really like the sexual ones. I skip pretty much all of the ones about like marriages and these different types of abuses and stuff. Like, I don't really want to get too, like, I don't know. I've been informed enough about that I feel like I just don't like listening to it because it gets in my head and I'm like, I don't want to be thinking about this stuff. Everyone has their limits, right? And it's like, I kind of have my limits with things where I'm like, this isn't healthy for me. I think it's very informative. One reason why I like videos about cults and stuff is because, it's easy, and someone mentioned this, and, I've noticed it too, because I always had like a fascination with the Amish, with other certain groups that weren't the group of religion that I grew up in. I always liked looking and seeing and being like, okay, like these people are doing this, and like, but I noticed, no matter who I interact with, no matter what religion or what background, humans will be humans, There's always going to be good ones who actually care, and they're the ones that leave a really big impression where you're like, wow, that person was really kind and loving. And it doesn't matter what the religion is. I find that a lot of times those people don't really shove it down your neck. It's like they practice their religion and do it in their own way, and you might witness them doing it, but they're not ever like, you need to do this because, you're going to go to hell if you don't or whatever. they lead by example, and it leads to like a curiosity. It's always led me to a curiosity. That's why I started studying Islam. The closest Muslim friend I ever had, that I met, that was in school with us at a Christian school. He was, as far as I know, the only Muslim I ever knew, and that was there, and probably the first Muslim I ever met that was like actively a practicing Muslim. It captured my attention because I was like, he's really nice, really sensitive. He was never sarcastic with people. He was always, kind. Never had a negative word to really say to people. He was never like offensive towards people. People would try to get under his skin because he was different and stuff, and then people just realize, it's bullying, and like it just didn't look right, if people tried to like get to him because he was so nice. It was like it was just like genuinely nice, and the whole family was just so nice. It's just like, what do they have that we don't have? Because we're over here in this religious Christian school, Adventist school, and here's this Muslim family that looks like they're living a very not perfect life, but like the example that they set for just how they treat people. I was like, I want more of that in my life. Like it was, I don't think I even knew that people like that existed, that like actually like just create like general safe spaces for people, and just like, we're just genuinely just like kind-hearted people. Most of the people I knew were kind of like, yeah, they're good, they were nice, they're great. I'm not saying my friends weren't great, but there was always like that sarcasm, that kind of like a little jab here and there, a little like let's debate and argue, and a little bit of like intensity. It was kind of tense. It would get kind of tense sometimes. But with him, it was never like that. It was always just chill and like very humble guy. I'm not saying that my friends were bad people, but it's like we were all, I was in that category with my friends, like in this, you know, like I remember once, one year with yearbooks, I went and I was like writing like profanity, that wasn't allowed at that school, but I'd be like, oh, you effing B, and oh, like you're lucky that in basketball I didn't kick your, what, and like, like it was like, I thought I was being playful. I thought it was being funny. Like, I thought it was humorous. I didn't think anyone would look at it as like bad. I was just, and I wrote that in a lot of people's yearbooks. I wrote all kinds of stuff with profanity in it. And one girl was like, she kind of like tattled. She kind of had a big mouth, and she said it in front of like one of these lunch ladies. And the lunch lady read it and told our main teacher. And then the main teacher got mad and kind of like told my parents and stuff. And they were just kind of like, whatever. But yeah, I was like, not too pleased, that, I just never thought about it. Like, nobody told me it was wrong. Like, you'd think, I'm going around like cussing and swearing and stuff, and like talking about like, oh, white people this and all this, all this kind of stuff with my minority friends. And like, there was one girl, it was like the pastor's daughter, who was like, guys, kind of like, but she was never like, don't say that or stop saying that or whatever. Like, she was the only one who ever spoke up and said like anything. And so I was like, but she's the pastor's daughter, and she's kind of like, in my eyes, I was like, she's kind of like a goody goody, and she didn't really socialize with anybody or anything like that, so not too much. And so I kind of didn't really trust her judgment. I was just kind of like, okay, but yeah, I kind of had like a little chip on my shoulder and was a little bit like aggressive and, obnoxious towards people, not too kind towards people. But I don't think I kind of made enemies of people. Like, I was usually very accepting of people and didn't really like try to shun people away or anything like that. But yeah, like, it was always these other types of people that always left this impression on me, that I was like, wow, there's other people out there that are like, that I can learn from. Like, how are they that way when other people are like saying these things to them or doing these things to them? If I never would have met people from other religions and other denominations that were different, that had better qualities or qualities that I could learn from, I don't think I would have known, that there were people out there that live life differently, and that I think that usually when I saw other people with a different lifestyle, I was always intrigued by it because a lot of times I could see the good in it. Like I would see like my Japanese friends eating like super healthy foods, and I would see like my Indian friends eating like super healthy foods, or like certain groups of friends, like my Latino friends, like how they were very into their household and like, you know, maybe they didn't let the girls go out all the time too much, but at least with my friend groups and stuff, but you know, they would have us over and invite us over, and there'd always be like extended family there, and like everyone would be like they'd have music and everyone would just be like hanging out and stuff. And like my family didn't do that, you know, we had extended family within a drivable distance, but we hardly ever hung out like that. You know, we had like a few, like maybe 2 or 3 parties that I can remember, but it wasn't like every single weekend. You know, we're having these family parties and like to get gatherings and stuff, and like everyone's catching up, and like that wasn't something that we did. And so like I saw these different groups of people doing all these different things, and you know, I kind of noticed like I kind of got a positive impression of other groups. I never was like, oh, just because you're a different religion or a different race or a different ethnicity or live on some other side of town or come from some other language background or from some other state, that you're wrong and we're right and we're better. Like I always saw like, oh, they have this and they do this and I like that. Like they do this and I like that, you know. Um so I'm pretty grateful that I grew up around like different types of people, even though it was like, you know, it was kind of like an upbringing in an Adventist environment. Like there were others there. It wasn't just only Adventist. And so I learned a lot from others that I was like, oh, I wish that people, you know, at our church could like sit and have conversations and not like fight about it, or like I wish that people could play sports and be nice and not have somebody like storming off and like kicking holes in the walls and like people cussing each other out. It's like we literally had stuff like that happen. I think the men's league once had like a fight where like two of the teams were like fighting each other or something. And these are like church deacons and like pastors and stuff. It's like they're from two different churches, but it was like it became pretty intense, and I was just I think they canceled the league that for the rest of that season because of that fight, and I was like there's stuff like that that I was just like what's going on. But yeah, listening to this ex Jehovah's Witness guy talk about Jehovah's Witnesses, like it's kind of interesting because I've talked to Jehovah's Witnesses before, and the thing that I liked, I mean, there were some things that I liked. I mean, I was always a little skeptical about their teachings because they have their own like weird Bible that's like a little different, and you know, I'm not trying to like bash them. I'm just saying like, you know, I do kind of have a little bit of problematic, you know, thoughts about like these high demand religions when I start seeing that they're really trying to be abusive towards people. But I didn't know, like I knew, the reason why I'm bringing them up is because, you know, why it struck a chord with me was because, you know, of the holidays, you know, like that's one thing around the holidays that I kind of often think about, because I'm like, I think that's the first place I ever heard about, you know, any denomination that kind of is in the category of Christian that doesn't celebrate holidays, including Christian holidays. I was always interested in like why don't Christians celebrate Jewish holidays, especially because the denomination I grew up in, we observed or had a version of observance of the Seventh Day Sabbath, you know, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. So I was like, well, if we do this one and it says to keep this commandment, but all these other days it says these will be my holy days and keep these days like in these kind of ways, and we didn't do any of those. But then we actually, the church taught about you know, why you know most Christian churches celebrate, you know, or go to church on Sundays and not on Saturdays. um and so we kind of knew about the traditions, you know, of the intertwining of like the paganism and stuff. We knew about that. And, you know, they didn't leave out the conversations, you know, about Halloween, of course, that was a big one. they didn't really totally leave out the conversation about Christmas and paganism uh, roots. Um, it was kind of in the conversation, controversial. I remember when I think at one point they put a Christmas tree on the stage at the church next to like the cross or something, because there was usually this big cross that they would put up around the holidays. A big cross. It was like almost, I feel like they tried to make it like a replicated like life-size cross or something. Like it was a big cross. Like it took multiple people to carry that thing. It was heavy, big. Because around Easter they always did this like dramatic service where they would like take nails and people could come up and like hammer a nail into the cross, and it was just silence, and you would just hear these nails as people were supposed to like think about their sins, and they could come up and like hammer a nail and just to get like, you know, a visceral experience of it all. Like I was like, there was things that happened in these churches that I was like, what's going on? But it would be like interactive stuff like that. That's not like a religious Easter thing that other churches really do. But it was like, I can see where it's coming from, because they want to think more about the crucifixion, not like the Easter bunny and all that. Like they want to have their minds in the right place and the right focus of what was going on. Yet we're not celebrating Passover, we're celebrating Easter. And so it's kind of like, there was always this weird thing with holidays for me, because there was always this like, well, why don't we celebrate Passover if we're talking about not the Easter bunny and the egg hunts and all that kind of stuff? And like, oh, well, that's paganism, but we still say we celebrate Easter, but like we're trying to keep it super focused on biblical stuff. And like, why are people kind of like debating, should we have the Christmas tree up there next to the cross on the stage when there wasn't always a Christmas tree? Maybe the tree was in the lobby. It's like, do we need the tree in the sanctuary? Can we put it like outside or something? Like there were people that were having these conversations, and I was kind of like, there is kind of like, I don't know, in Adventism there was that kind of like, I don't know, kind of thing, and I think they did this like harvest festival. I remember when they started doing that, because they didn't always do it, but they wanted to have like an alternative for Christians and non-Halloween people on Halloween, to like have a gathering where they could go to that had, you couldn't wear ghoulish costumes. You could be like, I think I went once as like a snowboarder, and like you could go as like a freaking, you could go as anything, but not like a ghost or a demon or a devil, or you could be like an angel or something, but you couldn't be like a ghost or anything like that, or like, a vampire per se, or anything like that. This is one thing I always find like super annoying, is when I'm recording, somebody always likes to come and park like an almost completely empty parking lot, and people want to come park over near where I'm at. Leaves the car, walks off. I don't know, I wonder what's going on. I think people are either peeing around these buildings. I don't really know what's going on. But yeah, this guy circled the parking lot at least like 5 times. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, they did like this harvest festival where you could like bob for apples and play little games and stuff, like go through mazes, and like they always had like a zip line and a moon bounce and like food you could buy, and like popcorn, and maybe there'd be like a movie playing in one room, but it wasn't like anything about Halloween. It was like Aladdin or like some random movie. You could wear costumes, fairies, and all that kind of stuff, like something nice and acceptable, nothing too risque. You couldn't be like a naughty nurse or anything like that, but you could just wear just like whatever kind of costume you want to wear, other than those types of things. And it was still a little like, okay, well, how are we not celebrating Halloween here if we just call it something else? It's kind of like, I don't know. I always found it kind of weird. I was like, okay, But those are the things that I think came up in my lifetime where they started doing Easter egg hunts every now and then, for the kids, and they, I don't think I ever saw like a Santa come up or anything. Not that I remember. But Easter was usually treated more seriously. And then like Mother's Day, they'd always give roses in the church. Like every child who had a mother there could go and like get a rose at the front for free, and then go give it to your mother during the allotted times. I think during Easter we had like palm fronds that we could get, and just like they'd have a procession around the church where you'd be singing this song, Hosanna in the highest, and like waving the palm frond, and like I don't know what they've changed, but there was a time when they would do these types of things almost every year. So it's like they always had holidays, but it was always kind of like a mixed, like, okay, we're doing our own kind of version of this. And we kind of talk about how, oh, no paganism and no other stuff, but then it's like we kind of do the paganism, but we kind of don't. I'd say maybe more than most stereotypical churches, there was more conversation about it, about the roots behind it than not, but it also, there were like little debates about things like the Easter egg hunts or the harvest festival or like all these other things. And then some things they never debate, like Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving, stuff like that. Like nobody was really gonna like debate that kind of stuff too much. But yeah, like there was conversation, but they would let people kind of like make their own decisions. They wouldn't like preach it one way or the other. Like, don't have a tree because it's rooted to this, or don't let your kid go to Santa Claus and give a wish list, or like they didn't really like talk about that like that. They might talk about it a little bit about what it means, but they never really talked about like do it, don't do it, But they didn't like fully inform us. Like they didn't fully inform us. They kind of like vaguely mentioned it, but then like left it alone because they were always careful not to offend. They never wanted people to feel like ashamed of like doing something either right or wrong. So there was kind of that, like they never really wanted someone to feel like ashamed for doing what was even like wrong, I guess. Not saying that it was wrong, but I'm just saying like if they would have labeled it as wrong, they wouldn't make it so that people would feel wrong. And there were some other things where they didn't mind trying to put people in their places, and then other people were like offended and stuff. So there was a lot of debating, a lot arguing. People didn't really get along about certain topics often, like the drums in the church, and like there's all this kind of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff that people would be fighting about that I remember. But yeah, so when I first talked to any Jehovah's Witnesses, that was something that kind of came up to me that I was like, oh, that's interesting. That they kind of have like an understanding of the pagan roots of holidays. They understand it and they talk about it outwardly, and they actually don't practice it. But then they don't practice the Jewish holidays either, and they don't they don't celebrate birthdays, they don't do any kind of celebrations. That to me was like, oh, that's a little much, But hearing this guy talk about it, about his examples of what he had to do, like he would be like in a classroom as a Jehovah's Witness kid, 8 years old or something, and everyone else is singing happy birthday, and probably participating. Maybe there's a gift, from the teacher, like a card, everyone's singing happy birthday, everyone's gathered around maybe the birthday person or birthday people of the month or whatever it is for the classroom, and here's some cake and maybe some soda or whatever, and like he would be like in the room. It's not like they separated him out and put him like in he said they didn't put him like in the principal's office or some other space. He was there witnessing it, but he would have to be outside the group. So like if everyone was gathered around, he couldn't be gathered. He'd have to be like in the background somewhere, observing but not participating at all. He probably couldn't have any, he didn't say this specifically, but I'm guessing he wouldn't have been able to have any cake. He mentioned for Valentine's Day when kids are putting those pouches on the sides of their desks for other people to come by and, you know, give a Valentine's card to like almost, or candy or whatever, to almost all your classmates or whatever. um you know, just giving them out to everyone. And um he wasn't allowed to do that. You know, he wasn't allowed to participate in any of that. He said he witnessed once, you know, a little boy getting a picture from a little girl that was in, I guess it was someone in the school, or I guess the little boy was a Jehovah's Witness kid, and the little girl was in the class, and the little girl was really sweet and drew that little boy a picture of a Santa Claus. And when the little boy came to show it to his mom, she ripped the picture up or crumpled it up or something like that in front of both of them, and the little girl was like super sad about it. Those are the ones I can remember. But I do remember kind of that experience, hearing about, you know, those kind of, like, I heard how Jehovah's Witnesses were like, oh, we don't celebrate it, but I never knew what it looked like. I never knew that it was like so blatant and so like, oh, you don't just leave, or like you're not passive about it. It's like you're still kind of there. You know, you don't like, it's not like when they have those sex ed classes and then like they send the kid to like another room to color in the library or whatever while they're, or do like read a book or study for like an hour somewhere else and then they bring you back in or whatever. It's like you're witnessing it. And he said that for him, you know, it was good to witness that he was missing out on all that fun and all that, you know, participation and fun. And, you know, he said it was damaging, it was bad, but at the same time it was good. It was part of something that maybe helped him leave, because he kind of realized that he was missing out on all these things. And I'm not, you know, I talk a lot about different holidays on here, because I think it's important, you know. A friend told me the other day, you know, like I was just mentioning something about Kwanzaa, and a friend told me the other day they'd never heard of it. And I'm like, I didn't know that there were people who lived in the U.S. who talked to people, like, you know, as therapists and things, who've never heard of Kwanzaa. Like, maybe they're not from the U.S., but like, they've lived in the U.S. for at least like 15 years or longer. I don't know, probably at least 15 years. And I'm like, how have you never heard of Kwanzaa? You've lived in like major cities. Like, it's not like that hidden, is it? I mean, like, I don't know. Like, it's just kind of weird to me. But I've had my own journey with holidays. You know, I'm not against them, because I kind of see the value. I feel like I can do my own thing and have other people do their own thing, and I don't have to explain it to anybody, you know. You know, if people wish me a Merry Christmas, you know, I don't mind saying Merry Christmas to people, you know, just like if it's someone's birthday, I can say happy birthday. I mean, it's their birthday. It's not my birthday. It's their birthday. So why is it bad? You know, that's kind of how I see it. If someone's wishing me like a happy holiday about some kind of holiday that I'm not really too interested in actively practicing, I can still wish them a happy holiday, because it's their holiday. It's what they're doing. You know, so I don't really mind it, because I kind of treat it almost like a birthday, where it's like, well, if it's your birthday, of course I'm going to say happy birthday. If it's your holiday, yeah, happy holiday to you, you know, like, people don't need to know what I'm doing in my own thing. Like, you know, I just make my own choices with it. I don't mind observing stuff, like, as far as, like, being in the room and stuff, like, when people are celebrating stuff, like, I'm not... I think I draw the line at, if it's a ceremonial thing that I don't understand, I think I draw the line there. Like, I don't know if I'd go to some kind of like Wiccan thing. Like, I'm not against Wiccans. It's just I don't understand it enough to be there and be like, oh, I feel like educated enough to like engage with this. You know, I feel kind of like I know what I was taught about it. I don't know what I think about it. And I kind of like to know kind of what I'm getting myself into before I do. Now, if I was at someone's house and they started doing some kind of like prayer to some kind of thing, like, you know, like I've had friends invite me to pray at their temples to their gods and things. Or I've gone with friends who showed me around certain like Hindu temples and asked me if I wanted to like pray or bow or do some kind of ritual. And you know, I'm kind of like I'm just here to like observe. You know, like you can do what you want to do, but like I don't understand it enough to be like bowing into people and like or idols and all these kind of things. And yes, it is because I was raised in a Christian denomination that teaches you not to like be bowing to idols and stuff. But I don't know anything about that. I've never, you know, practiced bowing down to idols. I've never, you know, practiced um, that experience with idols. I don't think I'm gonna come here at night anymore. Somebody's posting up to sleep out in front of the store. Um, yeah, I've never, um, like, I've never really done that. Like, I don't really know much about it. And I've never actively known that I was, like, worshiping some god from something that I don't really understand. Like, anything I've worshipped, I've tried to understand it before I've decided that I want to worship it. Um, now I've learned a little bit, not much, not enough about the history of Yahweh and another deity, which I don't really understand fully enough. But there is this historical theory about, you know, what the ancient Hebrews were worshiping before, you know, they went with Moses into the wilderness and left slavery. Um, I guess the Bible kind of does present itself very linearly, but it seems like there was some other kind of like there might have been some other kind of like idols that were at least one of them was named Yahweh. I think there was another one too. But I don't remember what it was. But I don't know. I try to focus on, you know, ultimately religions, most of them, the root is love, right? All the rituals and things they're important, you know, as worship of the individual to the deity. It's not, and it can be a communal thing too, but you know, I don't think I don't think you have to have like a religious community. I don't know. I mean, the idea of like a minyan is maybe, you know, something that is I think it comes from the Bible, but it's not I don't think the Bible says you have to have like 8 people or whatever to have like a true worship service. But I do know the tradition of it in Judaism, especially when they have like a prayer service or any kind of service, I guess. You know, if you have 8 people, it's a minyan, and you know, I know Christians always say, you know, wherever there are 2 or more gathered, you know, then the Lord is there or something. They take that from the New Testament. I do think that, you know, worshiping with other people is helpful, but also sometimes I find to be honest, I find it to be sometimes a little difficult lately, to be involved, like, and it's because of this idea of love, the concept of love. I feel like I understand it. I'm not saying that I fully am able to like practice it 110% and I'm perfect at it and good at it, because I know where I fall short. I see it on a regular basis, and I'm like, I need to be kinder. I need to be, gentler and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, sometimes I'm just like, dude, I'm so grumpy, and I know this person's gonna come up and talk to me while I'm like trying to cook in the kitchen. I just don't want to talk to anybody. And then here they come and start talking to me, and it's like, even if I say I don't really feel like talking, and then here they come again, and it's like, sometimes I'm just not in the mood to like interact. And I have a lot of that where it's like, I don't really have enough space to like not interact when I don't feel like it, Like, I'm constantly being tested and forced to like interact with people when I really don't feel like doing it. And those people just, for some reason, just never seem to understand that I am not as social as they make me out to be. And I don't want to listen to what they have to say at certain times. And I just want to be by myself. And I didn't come out here to talk to you. And I'm just kind of in my own head. And I just don't want to talk to anybody. Like, and they just want to talk, and they don't ask or care if I'm ignoring them or like kind of seem grumpy. It's just hard for me to kind of like control my emotions, especially when I'm like, okay, I'm hungry. Like, I'm coming out here to cook because I'm hungry. I'm already kind of in a hangry mood. I don't want to talk to anybody, and then they want to talk to me while I'm cooking, and it's like, dude, it's just not the best time. I'm not in a good mood. Or I just came out from like doing a lot of work, and I was like out and about in the city, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta come home, and I'm stressed from like driving all over in traffic, and then like I come home, and then first thing somebody wants to talk to me, and it's like, this is not the time, but I think that's a constant problem I'm going to have to deal with. And if that's the biggest problem I have to deal with, then so be it. But it's like, I tell people, I'm like, if I walk in the door, I don't want to talk. If I'm cooking, I don't want to talk. I don't know how many times I have to say it. I've said it almost every day, multiple times. And people don't want to listen. And I guess they just want to, like, you're going to get my grumpy side if you are doing that. But, it's like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, I can try to be nice and calm, but I'm like, dude, I'm literally like not in a good mood to be talking right now. Just give me like 45 minutes and I'll be perfectly fed and cheerful, or relaxed and cheerful and feel better. But they don't want to give it time. They're like, this is the time I want to talk to you while you're not in the mood to talk to me. It's like, fine. Well, then you're going to get my attitude then. And I deal with that. And it's like, I don't think it's right. I'm not saying it's right. It's not easy for me to like control it, and at certain points I'm like, I don't think I should have to control it, because I've outwardly said just I don't want to talk. And if people just want to keep talking to me, it's kind of like a boundary issue at a certain point. It's like, if you're just going to bombard me and I'm not in the mood, like, what do you want me to do? But I don't think it's right. It's not loving, it's not nice, it's not kind, it's not gentle, it's not peaceful, it's none of that. But at the same time, it's like, other people have to read the room sometimes too, and it's like, so I would say that's kind of one of my bigger issues socially, where it's like, I just don't understand why people just can't get it through their thick skulls sometimes, but that's just how it's going to be. That's something I'll just have to deal with. Like, I'm not getting that right on a pretty regular basis. I think I'm getting better with it, but it's, I don't think it's ever going to go away. Like, when my energy is depleted, it is not a time for me to be interacting with people. And I already know that. And other people just don't seem to mind. They're like, I'm lonely, I want to talk. It's like, well, if you want to talk to this version of me, then keep on talking. But it's like, you could wait a while and I'll come back and talk to you. But it's like, no, if they don't want to wait. It's like, I don't understand where that comes from, where people like to talk to grumpy people, but it's like, all right, well, it's kind of your choice too. But the best way I've found to resolve that is just walk around the house with earphones in, and then if people talk to me, I just don't respond, and I'm just like, whatever, it's rude, but at least I'm not being directly rude to you, verbally. But I don't really know. It's something that I don't think I'm ever gonna really be too great at it. I'm getting better and I'm working at it, and as my life and I'm working on my stress levels and my health and stuff. And like, I am getting better with it, but it's still, I can still feel it. Like every now and then, I'm like, I can tell when I'm just like in a tense mood. I just don't want to talk to people. And a lot of times I can be like that. I can be like in a tense mood. I just am not in the mood to like talk to people. But then I often have people in my life where I'm sharing a house with people that don't talk to anybody ever. And so I'm the person that they see in person that they like to talk to all the time. Like they could not care less if I do not care, if I'm in a mood or whatever. They're just like happy to see somebody, and I'm just like, you need to get out and like make friends and talk to other people. But I'm constantly living in houses full of lonely people, and I think that's probably a problem on my own end too. I mean, that's on me. So, you know, because it is a conscious decision, so that's on me. But um, yeah, I don't think it's right. Like, I don't think it's right to treat people like that. But I would say, when I think about love, I know what it looks like. So I can even tell. Like, I give that as an example of myself to be like, I can tell when I'm not being loving. I can sense it. I can feel it usually. Sometimes I'm like not aware at all, but most times I can kind of tell. Like, I can not foresee, but I can kind of tell, like, if I go home, for example, and I'm like I'm just kind of like tired and I just want to go to my room and just like lay down, and then somebody like hears the car roll up, and so they try to be nice and open the door, and then they want to talk to me when they're at the door. Like, sometimes I'll just sit in the car until they shut the door, just so I don't have to talk to them as I'm walking up the driveway. And it's like, I need space. Like, I don't really like just feeling like, how puppies are when you come home and they're like barking when you're like 4 houses down the street already because they can sense that you're coming. And like, that's kind of how it feels. Like, dude, this is too much. It's like, you gotta like give me some space, like. But I don't know, some people just, they're a little overbearing with their energies, and they just don't care how it affects other people. Or they do care and they just can't handle it themselves. Like, they might not be able to kind of like dial it back. And it's that combination for like people like me and people like that. That's not an ideal conversation. Like, the moody people that kind of like to keep to themselves a lot, and then the people that are super lonely that kind of overdo it and always want to be like chatting and chattering and like talking to you when you're kind of in the middle of doing other stuff. And it's like, I very mindfully cook. I very mindfully like clean. I'm focused on what I'm doing. I don't like people like talking to me about like whatever they're trying to do and stuff in the background when I'm like, all these ideas that they have in their minds and stuff. Like, I really don't want to talk about that. I'm really not interested. Unless I'm interested, I'm not interested. Like, I can't give like partial attention to people. I guess that's what it is too. I'm very like, if you want my attention, it's kind of all or nothing. It's like, I will only talk to people when I'm not busy at all. And then they will get my full undivided attention. Or if I'm doing something, I don't want to talk to anybody. That's kind of how it is, Friends, family, housemates, whoever it is. That's one thing I'm kind of learning about myself. And some people like that multitasking. Like, they want to like talk to you while they're doing other stuff. And it's like, no. I think I draw the line at like, okay, if I'm walking somewhere, I might talk on the phone, or if I'm driving, I might talk on the phone, especially because I get these like long drives and stuff. But other than that, if I'm not like talking on the phone or whatever, I'm really not gonna be too all that concerned. I'm usually gonna keep it kind of mellow, but I don't know. But when it comes to, these ideas of love, I guess what I'm trying to say is I kind of notice it in a different way than a lot of people, which makes me kind of hesitant towards like religious services, Because I'm always looking for, like, okay, what are they saying that's not loving? What are they saying that's not about love? I kind of pick that out. That's all the stuff that I, like, try to pick out. I'm like, if I pick at anything, that's what I pick at. I'm like, what are they saying that's not love? And then I'll sometimes catch things and I'm like, that's not love. That thing that they do or that they teach is not love, and they call it love. They're like, oh, this is love. We're doing this out of love, we're treating you bad out of love, we're treating you, horribly out of love, so you'll learn your lesson. Or like, a lot of it's like they want people to stay in line. It's an act of control. They treat people bad or do bad things or teach other people to do bad things because they want people to stay in line. Because you can't really have a religion where everybody's doing whatever they want to do without following the rules. Like, I don't know if there's a religion like that exists where people can just do whatever they want to do. Like, you have to come to services at least on like the major days or something. Like, you have to have some kind of like structure to it. You have to believe in what you're worshiping. You have to follow whatever the tenets are, at least know about them and study about them and try to follow it, or at least pretend like you do. Like, you gotta like do some of it. Like, I don't know of many religions where you're like, okay, like I said, I'm this religion, but I don't have to do any of it. No one's ever gonna call me. There's no accountability. There's no teaching of how to live and like some kind of method that people can use to kind of engage with others and have a community that practices these things. Like, usually there's going to be that. And what I find is, there's always going to be people who kind of have this warped idea of love. And I just don't want to learn from those people anymore. And it's just, sometimes I hear it and I'm like, you hear these people in these like heated kind of like, like I had a friend once when one of my friends unfortunately got divorced. And I knew that one of my other friends thought really bad about it, like was mad about it and thought, oh, like they're doing like some immoral thing by getting divorced. And in my head, I'm like, dude, my poor friend got divorced, like that sucks. And I hope that they're okay. And I don't want to, overstep or like comment on it really because it's not really my place. And I'm just like, I just feel bad for them, I never even knew what happened, and they never even told me, and I never even asked, because it's none of my business. I was curious. To be honest, I was curious. I mean, why would I not be curious? These people have been in my life since, like, childhood. I'm curious, Especially because there were no signs of it. So, I was pretty shocked. But my other friend, I remember kind of mentioning, like, why, what do you think about, people getting divorced? And I remember making some comment like, it's none of my business, but, I'm not married. I've never been married, but, if I was with someone who was abusive towards me, I don't see any problem with divorcing them, And then I was kind of asking my friends, I don't remember what they said, but I was like, as your friend, if I married somebody who was beating me up all the time, wouldn't you want me to leave them? You know what I mean? It's like, would you be like, no, the religion says to stay? You know what I mean? It's like, and I don't think the Adventist religion is like that ultra strict about divorce. Like, it is, but it isn't. It's not like some religions where you're going to like lose your membership and lose everything, because you got divorced. Like, it's kind of your own decision, but people will treat you different. They'll treat you like crap. It's like, they'll take sides. It's just the whole thing. And, there's stuff like that happens where I'm just like, but they want to call it loving and act loving. And I know people get uncomfortable. So it's like, okay, if you find out that someone in your church is gay or something, some people are uncomfortable with that. Or if you find out that someone got divorced, some people are uncomfortable with that. So they're gonna act weird and crazy in all kind of strange ways. I'm not saying it is right. I'm just saying they're gonna act strange. They're gonna act weird. especially when it has anything to do with like sexuality and things, because people are so like repressed and messed up about it. They're always gonna like say something weird. But it's like, you know, the like joke like, that didn't last long with that marriage, or like whatever. It was like, that's so inappropriate. But people think that they're not being unloving, you know, by doing these things, by reacting certain ways, by being like, you know, joking in certain ways, by, you know, just not acting loving. They don't see it. Sometimes they just don't see it. They think that they're acting in love. They think, oh, this is love, you know, when I put this person in their place in front of a bunch of people, this is love, because what I'm saying is right, and they were wrong and they wronged me, therefore I need to like shame them in front of everybody. And like they think that's right because they feel like it's right. But it's like, is it right? Just because it's naturally coming out of you, is it right? Like, just because I'm naturally feeling grumpy, it's not right for me to be all like grouchy with people. It's not right. But then at the same time, it's like, you know, when people overstep boundaries, it's like there's a certain point where it's like, you know, people aren't stupid, you know what I mean? I feel like sometimes people have very, very low awareness. That's definitely true. Sometimes people have very, very low ability to like control their impulses, and sometimes people have very low ability to kind of put it all together and like not act on how they feel. So it can go either way, right? If I'm talking about the grumpy example, you know, I can be aware of how grumpy I am, but it's hard to control it. And especially if I think that someone's purposely doing something, because they're also not controlling their impulses to talk to me when I don't want to talk to them. You know, it's kind of like these two things battling each other. It's like they might want to talk just as much as I don't want to talk, you know? So I'm naturally just like shutting down, and they're naturally just like ultra chatty. And it's like, this is not a good combination. So it doesn't matter what I tell them, because their level of awareness isn't going to be there when they're in an impulsively chatty mood and I'm not feeling it. They're not going to be like, let me be aware that I'm annoying this person. Let me be aware that this person literally just told me that they don't want to talk, and I'm overstepping that boundary by talking to them still and keeping on talking and talking and talking, you know, and, you know, literally, you know, like that's kind of what I think it is. You know, people can't control their impulses sometimes with that kind of stuff. It's like but it's also up to them. It's like, if you're really that lonely or that caffeinated or whatever it is, get some social hobbies where you're interacting with more people. You know, like, you're deprived of social interactions. You can't just take it out on like the person who you see next, you know, just because you feel like you want to talk to somebody, even if they don't want to talk to you. Like, you'd rather talk to someone who doesn't want to talk to you than to find people who do want to interact. It's like, that's not fair to other people either. So it's kind of like, people kind of want to, I'm not saying that, like, you know, when it gets to a level of like abusiveness, that's not okay, but it's like, you know, it kind of goes both ways is how I see it. And it's like, I don't think either one of them is right. Most people would probably say, oh, like that lonely, chatty person, that poor person. It's like, yeah, well, there are people actively wanting to hang out with you, people who want to kind of like interact and like do stuff, and you're avoiding them. And it's like, I don't want to talk, you know, to a lot of times too, if there's like that age gap too, it's like, you know, people my age in their 30s, early 40s, and then there's people in their 60s and 70s. It's kind of like, sometimes you just don't want to have conversations with them like so much, you know? It's like, it's too much sometimes. It's like they want to talk about things that, like, we're in completely different worlds. You know, like, I'm not retired. I'm not looking to retire anytime soon. And they just want to, like, live that retired life and, like, talk to you about all the retired things. And I'm more focused on career related things and, like, my social life and stuff like that. And they're not focused on any of that. They're focused on their hobbies and these other things that they've got going on. And it's like, we're in two different worlds. Like, we're so far apart on so many things. And, you know, it's important to find middle ground and time for it, but especially if it's family members. But I also, you know, I do see, I'm just using this as an example, but I do see that, you know, oftentimes when there are, like, two conflicting kind of, like, personality areas or, like, social areas, oftentimes it's like, you know, people aren't, like, sometimes aware of their own self, like, or they're not able to control their impulses even if they are aware, or they just ignore boundaries. And if I don't know, sometimes it's hard when people are nice, but maybe this is mean for me to say, I don't think just because someone's nice they get a pass at overstepping boundaries. It's like, if I tell my neighbor I don't want them to keep bringing me desserts, but they keep baking desserts and leaving them on my doorstep, and I don't want them, and they keep doing it, yeah, it's nice, but it's like, I don't want you to do it anymore. You know, it's like, there's stuff like that where it's like, if somebody asks you to stop doing something, you know, stop doing it, you know. But also there's the impulsivity, you know, and the lack of awareness. People maybe don't notice that they're doing it, or they don't care because they've got that impulse control issue where it's like, for me, I'm usually too socially overwhelmed. So I don't usually feel so much desire to be talking to certain people all the time. And then there's some other people that are usually too under socially stimulated, and so they're deprived of social interactions, and they want to be talking all the time. You know, even if there's no depth to what they're saying, it's like, I don't really like all the, like, the surfacey conversations. It's like, we're not even talking about anything. like you're just, like, you're just chattering to me, and it's just like noise in the background. I don't even like the TV on in the background. I'm not one of those people that likes background noise when I'm doing stuff. I don't need constant chatter. I like silence. I like silence unless I'm actively, like, thinking about something, you know, or watching something or engaging with it. Like, I don't like to do too much multitasking. It stresses me out, but I don't know. It's not just that, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I kind of, like, steer clear of, like, churchy environments. That's one main reason. It's not the only reason. But yeah, overall, I would probably say, if we're talking about, you know, ex-Jehovah's Witness religion, or people who were previously part of the Jehovah's Witness religion and not celebrating common holidays, I can kind of relate to that. I find it to be relatable. And like I said, I don't think it's like I'm not trying to make, like, a judgment, like, good or bad. I'm just thinking that specifically, you know, the holiday thing. It's kind of like a weird thing to me. It was kind of funny on Instagram. There was this little clip where it was, like, Romanian, you know, like, the way that types of Romanian celebrations look in Romania, and the Romanian Christmas celebrations. And it shows, like, you know, people dressed in these, like, bear, you know, costumes or regalia. I don't know if they're costumes or regalia. Some of them looked like some kind of sheep or something, or deer, and people, like, making these kind of strange, almost creepy movements, and these, like, sheep-looking things with no, like, faces, and, like, it was kind of creepy. I've never seen anything like that. It was kind of creepy looking. some of the stuff was with the costumes or regalia that looked like animals and stuff. Just they look kind of creepy, wolf, like scary looking wolf faces and stuff. And I was like, I wonder what this is. And I looked through the comments, and one person was like, pagan, paganism. This has nothing to do with Christ. And I'm just thinking, like, yeah, Christmas is a pagan holiday. It also kind of technically has nothing to do with Christ. It just was, it's a commemoration. It's like people decide to celebrate the birth of Jesus on that day. And I think most Christians are kind of aware. They're like, well, Jesus was probably not born then. And almost every theory about like the life and birth of Jesus, almost every theory that I've ever heard agrees that he wasn't born on December 25th. And, you can even check in history when, people who practice Christianity started to celebrate Christmas. Like, it wasn't like an early holiday. It's not a Jewish holiday. People confuse it with Hanukkah, which isn't even the same thing. It's near the same time of year usually, and sometimes it's the same time, but Hanukkah follows a lunar cycle, so Hanukkah's different every year. Hanukkah's always different. So, I don't know. The thing is, it's weird. I'm not so against paganism. My reasoning for not being so against it is because a lot of cultures followed paganism before the spread, or something similar to a type of paganism before the spread of Christianity. And so because, a lot of ancient and, indigenous religions might have some kind of pagan related things attached to them, who am I to say that it's wrong just because it's before Christianity spread? It's like there were tons of people around the world who were practicing all kinds of stuff before they ever even heard about Jesus, or before, that message was even being spread to anybody. And there were tons of people who were practicing stuff before Jesus even existed on earth. I mean, Jesus was only around about 2,000 something years ago. And so if you think about how long humanity's been around, there were people around before 2,000 years ago, and they were doing other things. And so it's like, who am I to say that what they were doing in their traditions are like way wrong just because Christianity's newer and people say that that's what everybody needs to be now. It's like, I don't know. I kind of have a problem with that. I do have a problem with that. I think Christianity's fine for the people that it's fine for. That's kind of my overall opinion about it. Not everything is right for everybody. I don't believe that everybody needs to believe the same, act the same. Just like I mentioned, I learned so much just from people who are different from me, and got so much value out of their differences that it's nearly changed. It's changed me in a positive way. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Like I mentioned, I'm not perfect. There's stuff I'm not good at. There's stuff I could definitely be way better at. But there's a lot of ways socially that I wouldn't even know that it was possible to control your anger, or to get in a mindset where like people are like around you trying to like bring you down, and you're like able to kind of like stand your ground in a compassionate way without like lashing out at people. I wouldn't even really know that. And here's an example. I just pull up to the house and somebody slightly opens up the door a little bit for me. It's like, come on, give me some space. And then they're going to say, right when I open the door, the response is going to be right away, oh, I didn't know you were gone. It's like, yeah, you knew I was gone, or else you wouldn't have opened the door. Like, you're just trying to like talk to me. But that's what I mean, people want to be impulsive, and I don't know. Part of me is like, I have a hard time taking things lightly, I think sometimes that people, are more aware or could be more aware than they are. I think I'm pretty aware of myself. I'm not super great at impulse control. And then I think I'm around a lot of people that are just not very aware of themselves. And some of them aren't good at impulse control. So whether that's impulses to be nice or impulses to not be nice, they're just not aware of it or in control of it. It's hard to deal with. But I don't know. In all situations, it's like things could be worse, right? Trying to drink this water. But I don't know. Like, I was even taught about things like meditation being evil and like all kind of stuff like that. I was taught all kinds of things, and I'm like, it's good to kind of deconstruct a lot of it. And I feel like, for myself personally, being too involved with like church and church culture too much kind of makes me more like, I kind of know what's right for me, and I know what love is supposed to look like. But I don't think that I know a lot of people who like to practice love or who really are like too good at like some people, yeah, but I'm talking about church people. I think they don't fully practice love sometimes. Like, they're kind of caught up in the prejudices that the church teaches, and I just kind of don't feel any real need to like be exposed to that, because I've been away from it for almost like a decade, and it's been heavenly and amazing and life-changing, and I don't see a lot of benefit to going back to that for my own self personally. But I don't know. So I guess that's almost all I have to say at the moment. We'll see otherwise. I'll see what else I get into learning. I'll be talking about that once I get into some more stuff. But for the time being, that's the kind of stuff I'm working on lately. It's more of like the social stuff. I feel like that's harder with religious thought to kind of work on all that kind of stuff versus, let's read the Bible and learn about like the history of these people. I feel like, my place is to learn more about, the social aspects of things from a psychological perspective, and how people can create those communities inside or outside of a church or whatever religion or whatever belief system or community type you live in. I think that is something that you can see in all cultures. It's possible to see it in all cultures. It's not just like, oh, a Christian thing or a Jewish thing or a Muslim thing or like whatever. That's really how I believe. Like I say, I was raised Christian, but I think overall what makes the biggest impact is having, safe social relationships and families with friends and all that. I don't feel like churches teach that, like how to do it. They're too busy talking about the Bible stories and things, and like putting some spin on it. And it's like, meanwhile, people are going home and they're like, I don't know how to react when I come home from my crazy boss. I don't know how to react when I come home from traffic. I don't know how to react when I wake up in the morning and haven't slept enough and my kids aren't getting ready fast enough. I don't know how to react just the fact that I'm working 2 jobs, or I don't know how to react with this family member who's overspending, like my spouse is overspending up past our budget and like we're broke or in debt up to our knees, up to our necks. You know, people fight, people argue, people can't have conversations, they don't know how to sit and talk about things. That's what I want to learn, is that kind of stuff, you know, and I feel like that goes over well, you know. I feel like, you know, all religions could do better to teach people that kind of stuff. So, I don't know, that's just my 2 cents. We're over an hour now. I should go in because it's getting a little bit chilly out, actually, but with that, thanks for listening.